What if I told you everything you've been chasing is actually running from you because of how hard you're chasing it? The success, the relationship, the recognition. You think if you push harder, sacrifice more, prove louder, it'll finally be yours. But the truth is, the harder you try to force it, the more it slips away. Like trying to grip water with a clenched fist. And maybe by now, you've noticed it too. The exhaustion, the constant effort with no return, the feeling that you're doing everything right, yet something still feels wrong. Because no one ever told you, chasing repels, desperation has a frequency, and when you operate from need, the world hears that before it hears your words. Not because you're not worthy, but because your energy says you're not ready. So you pour yourself into outcomes, into people, into moments that don't stay. You confuse movement with progress. You mistake noise for presence. You keep proving, adjusting, reaching, and slowly you lose yourself trying to earn what should have been drawn to you naturally. But what if the answer isn't to push harder? It's to stop pushing at all. Not from laziness, but wisdom. What if real power isn't in pursuit, but in posture, in groundedness, in becoming a man who attracts, not by demanding, but by embodying? That's the shift most men never make. But when you do, when you stop chasing and start becoming, everything around you begins to shift too. Because here's the truth. When a man finally relaxes into who he is, when he stops scrambling, explaining, reacting, he becomes magnetic. He doesn't beg. He doesn't perform. He radiates, and the world feels it. Whether it admits it or not, if you've tried everything else and nothing's stuck, this may be the one shift you haven't tried. This video won't give you a checklist. It's a recalibration, a reset in how you move, how you lead, how you attract. And it all starts with 6 quiet rules, 6 invisible shifts that change everything. Because the man who lives by these doesn't just get what he wants. He becomes someone the world can't afford to forget. And if any part of this hits something in you, don't keep it to yourself. Drop a line below. Because when one man speaks his truth, it gives permission for 100 others to do the same. This isn't just your story. It's a movement of men who've stopped chasing and started leading from within. Let's begin. Rule 1. Calm is louder than words. You don't need to raise your voice to be heard. You don't need to dominate a room to be respected. True presence doesn't shout. It resonates. And it's not something you project with noise or performance. It's something people feel the moment you walk in. Because real power doesn't need to explain itself. It doesn't chase approval. It doesn't beg to be noticed. It just is. The loudest man in the room may get the attention for a moment, but the calmest man owns the moment itself. In a world addicted to noise, calm becomes a rare force, one that others instinctively trust, respect, and even fear. Most men have been conditioned to perform, to talk fast, to over-explain, to prove themselves worthy in every interaction. But here's the truth. The more you speak without grounding, the more energy you leak. The more you try to be understood by everyone, the less anyone truly listens. But when you carry yourself with stillness, when your words are measured, when your gaze is steady, when your silence has weight, people lean in. They pay attention not because you forced them to, but because your calm created space for them to feel your presence. That kind of energy can't be faked. It's built through restraint, through patience, through the discipline of knowing when to hold your tongue and when to strike with precision. The Stoics understood this deeply. Zeno once said, "The wise man is silent not because he knows less, but because he controls more. This is the essence of masculine calm. You don't react to everything that pokes at you. You don't chase validation or try to win every conversation. You don't let your emotions spill over in an attempt to prove a point. You hold your ground. You let others exhaust themselves with noise while you conserve energy, observe patterns, and speak only when it truly matters. That kind of stillness isn't weakness. It's dominance in its purest, quietest form. There's a reason why certain men seem to draw others in without effort. It's not charm. It's not bravado. It's because their calm says, "I don't need anything from you. I'm already whole." That energy is rare, and it's unforgettable. Because when you've mastered yourself, when you no longer scramble to be seen or heard, the world starts responding to your silence like gravity. So don't rush to explain yourself. Don't speak just to fill silence. Let your restraint become your signature. Let your calm become your command. Because in the end, the man who can sit still while everyone else scrambles to be heard is the one who ends up being remembered. Calm is louder than words. Always. Rule 2. Don't move unless it's aligned. There's a kind of quiet power in a man who doesn't flinch at urgency, who doesn't run just because others are running, who isn't seduced by the illusion that motion always equals progress. In a world obsessed with hustle, speed, and proving your worth through constant activity, the man who waits, who only moves when his direction is clear, becomes something rare. And rare is magnetic. Most men are told from a young age, don't stop, keep pushing, don't sit still. If you're not moving, you're losing. But here's what they're not told. Movement without alignment is chaos. It burns time, drains energy, and pulls you away from who you're meant to become. Motion by itself isn't progress. It's distraction disguised as productivity. And the cost is your peace, your purpose, and your presence. A disciplined man isn't lazy. He's deliberate. He doesn't leap for every opportunity. He doesn't chase every open door. He chooses intentionally. He filters. He protects his direction because he knows not every step forward is progress. Sometimes stillness is the most strategic move a man can make. There's a profound clarity that comes from pausing, from asking yourself, is this aligned with who I am becoming? Not who you were, not who others expect you to be, but the man you're deliberately shaping through your choices. That kind of clarity doesn't come from reacting. It comes from restraint, from quiet self-examination, from refusing to let the world rush you into moves that cost you your soul. The Stoic Musonius Rufus once taught, "It is more noble to take one step with reason than 100 in confusion." Let that sink in. In a culture that glorifies constant motion, you become a different breed when you move only with reason. Only when the path aligns with your values, your direction, your peace. This isn't about hesitation. It's about calibration. It's about checking your compass before taking the next step. It's about not selling your energy to things that don't return it. When you act from alignment, your presence sharpens. Your confidence deepens. You stop chasing momentum and start generating gravity. And people feel that. Women feel it. Opportunities feel it. The world starts responding to your rhythm because it senses you're no longer reacting to it. You're setting the tone. So don't move just because the world tells you to. Don't act out of pressure, panic, or comparison. Move because you've made peace with the direction. Move because your next step belongs to you. And until that moment comes, hold, wait, watch. Because when you only move from alignment, you never lose energy. You amplify it. And the man who moves with alignment doesn't chase the world. The world moves around him. Most men don't talk about the moves they regret until it's too late. But what's one decision you wish you paused on before saying yes too fast? Share below. Your lesson might save someone else's energy. Rule 3. Let the world come to you. There's a moment in every man's life when he has to ask himself a hard question: why am I chasing everything that never seems to stay? And if he's honest, he'll realize he's been moving too fast, forcing too much, burning through energy, trying to pull people, outcomes, and success toward him, while all of it keeps slipping away. Because the truth is, what's truly meant for you doesn't arrive through force. It arrives through alignment, through gravity, through becoming the kind of man the world can't help but respond to. Most men live in pursuit. They chase validation. They chase women. They chase opportunities. But when you chase from lack, you radiate lack. And what you radiate, you replicate. The more you grasp, the more things pull away. It's like clutching sand. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it escapes. But when you let go, when you open your hand, when you relax into your presence, that's when everything starts flowing back. Not because you demanded it, but because you became the kind of man it wants to come home to. Letting the world come to you doesn't mean being passive. It means being anchored, still, intentional. It means doing the deep inner work to become a man of weight, not noise. Because the world doesn't reward desperation. It doesn't chase men who chase. It responds to men who lead, men who rest in their energy, men who choose to become instead of beg. When you stop chasing and start becoming, you shift your frequency and people feel it, without you having to say a word. The Stoics understood this with absolute clarity. Seneca once wrote, "Fate leads the willing and drags the unwilling." That means this: when you're in flow with the deeper rhythm of life, when your actions, thoughts, and direction are in harmony with who you're becoming, you don't have to force anything. Life begins to open. Opportunities align. People move. Not because you chased them, but because your stillness created space for them to arrive. And yes, it takes discipline. It takes restraint to not reach for everything the moment it flashes. It takes self-respect to say, if it doesn't come willingly, it doesn't belong to me. But the more you trust the process, the more you trust yourself, the more you'll realize that chasing was never the solution. You are. So stop grasping. Let go of the panic. Stop checking the results. Stop trying to force the doors open. Return to stillness. Return to self. Work on your energy, your presence, your standards. Move with clarity. Move with purpose. And then, let the world adjust to you. Because when a man stops chasing and starts embodying who he truly is, the world doesn't ignore him. It aligns with him. Rule 4. Stillness commands respect. Respect isn't demanded. It's not won through arguments, loud opinions, or attention-grabbing moves. The men who are truly respected don't talk the most. They don't need to dominate rooms or interrupt conversations. What sets them apart is stillness, not the absence of thought or action, but the quiet presence of control. You can feel it before they speak. They're the ones who don't flinch when insulted, who don't rush to explain themselves, who sit, watch, calculate, and when they finally speak, everyone listens. Not because of volume, but because of weight. Stillness is what makes a man untouchable. It's not passive. It's not weak. It's the art of restraint, the ability to not react when provoked, the strength to hold your ground without theatrics. to look a challenge in the eye and say nothing, not because you don't have something to say, but because you've mastered the part of you that used to need to be heard. In that silence, there's power, and the world feels it. Most men lose respect, not because they lack skill, but because they leak energy. They flinch too easily. They speak when they're insecure. They rush to defend their ego instead of protecting their peace. But the man who knows how to pause, to breathe, to sit with his emotions before acting, he becomes different. He becomes unshakable. Because no one can control a man who doesn't hand out his reactions. No one can manipulate the one who responds on his time, not theirs. Stillness is a form of leadership. It tells the room, I'm not here to be accepted. I'm already anchored. That energy doesn't need validation. It doesn't argue for its place. It simply is. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Let your tranquility be proof of your strength." That's not just philosophy. That's presence. And presence, when it's calm, controlled, and unwavering, naturally commands respect without ever having to ask for it. You don't need to correct every insult. You don't need to answer every challenge. Sometimes silence is the statement. Sometimes stillness is the response, and often it speaks louder than any clever comeback ever could. Because when you don't flinch, you don't fall. You stand. And in a world full of men who explode at every offense, the one who stays calm becomes impossible to provoke and impossible to ignore. So the next time you're tempted to overreact, to explain, to prove, pause. Look inward. Ask yourself, does this require my energy, or is my silence already enough? Trust that your calm is power, your stillness is presence, and your restraint is what sets you apart. Because in the end, storms don't destroy the strongest men. They reveal them. And the man who remains still in the chaos, he's the one the world respects without needing to speak a word. Rule 5. Act like you already have it. There's a quiet confidence in a man who doesn't need to prove he's worthy. He doesn't overcompensate. He doesn't posture. He walks into the room already knowing, what's meant for me is already mine. Not because he's arrogant, but because he's aligned. That's the difference between chasing and attracting. The man who chases is still trying to convince the world he belongs. The man who attracts, he's already convinced, and the world simply falls in line. Acting like you already have it doesn't mean pretending or faking it. It means owning the energy of a man who knows his value before anyone else validates it. It's the ability to carry yourself as if you're already chosen, already trusted, already powerful. Because that belief begins within. Most men wait. Wait for approval. Wait for someone to pick them. Wait for a signal to finally feel ready. But waiting is passive, and passivity repels. You don't get what you want by needing it. You get it by embodying it, becoming it. Before it arrives, when you act from abundance, you change the entire rhythm of your life. You stop moving like someone who's missing something. You start moving like someone who's living from overflow. That subtle shift changes how people see you. It changes how you speak, how you walk, how you look people in the eye. You stop explaining your worth, and you start expressing it without saying a word. That kind of energy doesn't chase outcomes. It invites them. It doesn't force attention. It draws it. And it doesn't beg to be remembered. It leaves an imprint. The Stoics knew this well. Epictetus said, "He who needs little has everything. He who appears to lack nothing, lacks nothing." Let that settle. Because the man who appears full, calm, present, unfazed, is rarely overlooked. He's magnetic, not because he tries to be, but because there's no desperation leaking out of him. He's the one people feel safest around, the one others trust instinctively, the one who doesn't need to convince you of anything, because his energy says it all. This principle isn't about ego, it's about essence. You train yourself daily to move as if what you want already belongs to you. Not because you're entitled, but because you've done the inner work. You're not performing. You're not trying to impress. You've simply built a life, internally, that reflects the kind of outcomes you attract externally. And over time, your reality adjusts to match the man you've already become. So don't wait for permission to feel whole. Don't wait for success to act successful. Don't wait for love to carry yourself like someone worth loving. That mindset keeps you chasing forever. Instead, live the energy of already. Walk with the posture of fulfillment. Speak with the presence of certainty. Show up as if you've already been chosen. Because the man who acts like he already has it is the man who eventually does. What would change if you walked into the next room like you already belonged there? Drop your answer below. This space is where men start owning their presence. Rule 6. Rooted men don't get replaced. Have you ever met a man who didn't need to say much because his presence spoke volumes? A man who didn't flinch when challenged, didn't scramble to be chosen, didn't shapeshift to fit every room. He wasn't loud. He wasn't desperate. But something about him made you remember him long after he left. That's what happens when a man becomes rooted. In a world obsessed with speed, novelty, and constant reinvention, the man who plants himself deeply into his values, his mission, his stillness, becomes rare, and rare becomes irreplaceable. While most men are running in circles, burning themselves out trying to be seen, the rooted man stays calm. Stays deliberate. He knows exactly who he is, and that self-possession draws the world in without a single word. You see, too many men confuse motion with meaning. They chase validation, hustle for attention, shape themselves into what others want, hoping that if they stay useful, they'll be needed. But here's the truth. Usefulness without identity makes you disposable. The second you stop serving someone else's agenda, they'll replace you. But when you become a man of essence, a man with a clear internal compass, people feel it. They remember it. Because you're no longer asking for a place, you are the place. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus said it best. No man is free who is not master of himself. And this is the heart of being rooted. When you've mastered your impulses, your ego, your emotions, when you don't move just to please, perform, or prove, you become free. Not because the world gave you permission, but because you stopped needing it. And that kind of inner freedom, it can't be copied, it can't be bought, and it sure as hell can't be replaced. Being rooted means you don't panic when things fall apart. You don't crumble when people misunderstand you. You're not thrown off course by noise, opinions, or urgency. Because your direction was chosen before the chaos started, you lead yourself, and the world either aligns or moves out of your way. How do you become this kind of man? You stop auditioning. You stop outsourcing your worth. You build your standards, and you live them, especially when no one's watching. You create rituals that anchor you daily. You walk into every room knowing you don't need to be picked, because you've already picked yourself. You stop being available to everything, and you start being committed to what matters. Because here's the truth. The man who's always available, always adjusting, always seeking, is easy to use and easy to forget. But the man who's rooted in silence, purpose and self-mastery, he becomes the one others look to, the one others can't shake. He's not for everyone, and he doesn't have to be. But for those who feel his presence, he becomes unforgettable, indéniable, irreplaceable. So don't rush to be everywhere. Don't race to impress. Don't dilute yourself just to fit in. Instead, deepen, ground yourself, move slower, but with more power, because the man who becomes solid, internally unshakable, doesn't need to chase opportunity. He becomes the place opportunity returns to. Be so rooted that even when the world spins, you don't. And in that stillness, you won't just manifest what you want, you'll become what the world quietly craves, but can never replace. The world follows the still one. The world was never meant to be chased. It was meant to be led, not with noise or force, but with presence. When a man finally stops running after validation, when he silences the chaos within and begins to move from alignment instead of desperation, something changes, not just in him, but around him. The energy shifts. People notice. Opportunities pause. Respect arrives. Not because he demanded it, but because he embodied it. This is the power of stillness. It isn't passive. It isn't weak. It's the posture of a man who has nothing to prove because he knows who he is. When you stop reacting to every offense, when you stop chasing every flash of attention, you become untouchable, unshakable, and eventually, inignorable. But this path isn't loud. It's not trending. And that's why this space matters. If this message spoke to something inside you, it's because you're ready for more than the surface-level advice. You're ready to reclaim the man you were meant to be. Not just for yourself, but for the men around you who are still stuck in noise, still begging to be seen, still shrinking in rooms they were born to lead. When you subscribe here, you're not just clicking a button, you're stepping into a movement. You're helping spread a message that too many men were never taught, that calm is power, that silence can command more than shouting ever could, that a man doesn't need to chase what he can attract by presence alone. By doing that, you're not only upgrading your own life, you're helping make this insight accessible to other men who need it. Men who are tired of being ignored, tired of the friend zone, tired of trying to prove themselves in rooms that don't deserve them. And maybe, like you, they're not looking for hype. They're looking for a mirror, a map, a reason to believe they can lead without yelling, be loved without begging, be respected without explaining. Which of the 6 rules hit you hardest? Drop it in the comments. And let another man find his turning point, because you had the courage to speak first. This isn't just content. It's a recalibration of what it means to be a man in control. We're building something here, quietly, intentionally. And if you're still here, reading this, then deep down, you've already joined us. So stay calm, stay focused, stay grounded, and let the world follow you.